Welcome back, everyone, for chapters 3 and 4 of The Maid and the Vampire. We left off where Areum enters Lord Millard's room without permission. But from this point on, we're actually going to call him what he is, which is a duke. The chapter continues with Duke Millard trapping Areum against the wall. "I'm sorry, master," she said, while placing her hands on his hands, which seemed to, make him flustered. Areum states that she wouldn't do it again, trying to calm his anger. He turns away to avoid her while asking, does she not know where the study was? Ringing a bell, a servant named Logan enters. "You called?" he asked. Areum looks to see that it was the guy that delivered her to the Duke. Duke Millard tells Logan to show the maid around the house, and he replies, "Yes, my lord." As they leave the room, he tells Areum that he was impressed with her for staying alive, and she thanked him. He takes her to the study to put away the books and begins to show her around the house, showing her the office, the guest room, dining room, and the banquet hall. As they continue, they were interrupted by the head maid, who now we know is called Lady Selene. Lady Selene begins to ask Lord Logan if she could borrow Areum for a few minutes. In the next scene, we are shown the kitchen, where Areum is amazed to see the many delicious foods, to the point where she begins to drool. She is then informed that this is the food for the Duke, and she is to follow her to bring them to him. As they make their way to deliver the food to the Duke, Areum remarks that the Duke eats food other than blood. Lady Selene asks that she wouldn't know because she had never seen him eat, and then mumbles that it's all pretense to look like a human anyway. Areum, not hearing what Selene said, begins to hope that he's not interested in the food because she's starving. They enter the room to see Duke Millard working and set the meal for him on the table. As they are about to leave, the Duke tells Areum to stay. He makes his way to the table and sits and tells her to sit anywhere. Areum takes the seat near the door while looking desperately hungry. Duke Millard begins to take a bite of his food when Areum decides to stop him. She shouts that he should give that to her first, so that she could taste it for poison. Duke Millard lets out a what, not understanding what she said. She began to state that, as his maid, she should be the one to test his food for potential poison, and that's what a maid is for. Awkwardly, Areum goes over to taste the food. The Duke feeds her, telling her to eat up and to taste whether there's poison or not. Overjoyed by the delicious taste of the food, Areum wants more. She then becomes serious and states that she needs another bite because she's not sure. Becoming amused at Areum's antics, he feeds her another bite. The Duke then tells her that if she is done eating, then if she could do something about the stench of her blood, gesturing to her foot. Unknown to her, she was bleeding from the heel of her foot. The Duke then calls for Logan to bandage Areum's foot and to get her a new pair of shoes. Now we see Logan telling Areum to wait here. Not long after, enters a beautiful young girl stating, "So you're the new personal maid." With a bubbly personality, she introduces herself as Marin Marley and then asks Areum's name. Seconds later, she drops the act of being a nice person and comes in closer to Areum's face as if she is inspecting it. She then says, "What about this kid does he like?" and asks for her age. Areum says she's 19, which turns out they're the same age. Marin coldly says that you're not even pretty enough to be his personal maid, and that Areum needs to know her place. Marin goes on to say that she's been working for 2 years just to become his personal maid, and how dare she come in to take her place. Areum is taken aback, where Marin says she'll still tend to her wounds, though. As Marin left, Areum thought to herself whether people in this world like vampires or not. I'm confused too, girl. Back at Duke Millard's office, We see Areum on the floor next to his desk reading a book and questioning why he was making her count the amount of times she sees the name 𝐻 Miller. Finally finished, she jumps to say it's 1068 and looking for confirmation if she's correct. We see a flashback from the Duke from his childhood, and as he looks at the book, he says it's correct. It's the next morning and Areum has awakened early for her duties. It has almost been a week already and Areum is starting to get used to her new life. She mentions that she is also getting used to the vampire's temper, which consists of menial tasks that are on repeat. As she compares her daily tasks to the other maids, she says that this isn't a bad job. In the next scene, we are shown Duke Millard in his room looking rather somber and disturbed. Areum comes in with the water basin and thinks to herself that he would have already sent her back to bring a new one and wonders if he's feeling okay. She comes in close and asks Master, "Are you okay? Should I call a doctor?" "Doctor," said Millard with a smirk. As Areum continues to question his well-being, he asks her to stop and asks, "Why are you trying so hard?" "What do you mean?" she said. "It's because I'm afraid of you." Obviously, she couldn't say that, so she began to think on how she could reply. The Duke, noticing that she's trying hard to come up with an answer, instead says, "I'm not sick." "Really?" Areum answered. "Yes. Now go tell Celine to go send someone to the Flora." Making her way to deliver the message, Areum runs into the other maids of the manor, and at this point, she is no longer bothered by the reactions to her. She even prefers it when they avoid her. As she continues, she sees and hears another maid named Priscilla say how annoying she is. So Areum turns and asks if she had seen Lady Celine. Priscilla shouts, "Don't smile at me like that. It makes me nauseous." And she told Areum not to come to the first floor. Done, Areum turns around and walks away, ignoring Priscilla's nastiness. As she does, Priscilla even comes up and hits Areum on the head and becomes enraged due to being ignored. Areum, not fazed by her actions, continues on her way because she had already knew what Priscilla was going to do. In the next scene, Areum has found Lady Celine and informs her of the Master's message. As they leave to make preparations, Areum follows behind Celine asking, "What is the Flora? And what do they do there?" Celine turns and says, "It's none of your business." Not getting an answer from her, Areum goes back to her master's room and informs him that Celine has been informed. Still curious, she begins to ask, "What's the Flora?" He turns over and says, "A kid like you doesn't need to know." The scene changes to Areum standing next to the Duke reading a book. Norman Cauldron, born in 1264, died in 1293. She begins to cough and asks Master, "Can I have a drink of water?" Duke Miller replied, "No." Areum thought to herself, how could this punk work without getting up once? She continued to tell him that if she could get a drink of water, her voice would sound much better when reading. He replied, "I like it and I prefer her raspy voice." As she was about to continue reading, there was a knock at the door. Duke Miller rings a bell for them to enter. In comes Lady Celine, stating that it was ready. Millard rises from his desk and says, "I will go now." As they all head down the hall, they stop near a blue curtain that hides a door behind it. Miller begins to head in when he turns to stop Areum from following him in. He places his finger on her head to stop her, saying, "Come in when you're older." Standing outside the door, Areum still isn't getting the picture. Lady Celine tells her to go and get Isabel. Areum makes her way to find Isabel and relays the message, but she is met with disdain from Isabel, who answers she knows. When entering the staff room, she could only think to herself that she was the only one who didn't know what the Flora is. Behind her was a giggling Marin, commenting on how young the Duke thinks to have kicked her out of the room. Areum replies, I wasn't kicked out. Marin continues saying that you are his personal maid and how useless she was for not helping him. Next, we hear a slam, which was Isabel slamming down a water basin saying that Lady Selene wants you, so you should go quickly. Both confused at her actions, Marin begins to say how many enemies Isabel has that she has become jealous. Isabel tells her to stop spewing nonsense and that Areum needs to get going. Areum reaches Lady Selene, who asks why she took so long. She tells her to come in and help clean up. Asking about Duke Millard, she is told he left already. We finally enter the room to see a gorgeous, mature woman dressed in pink lingerie. She introduces herself as Rose and comments that she had not seen Areum before and asks if she will be coming from now on, and is given a yes by Lady Selene. Areum introduces herself to Rose, and guess what kind of place the floor is now. Rose begins to comment on where the Duke uses his energy from, sucking on so much blood from her. She then begins to ask if the Duke had found a companion yet. Selene says that she cannot disclose her master's private information. Rose begins to press on, saying that she's trying to win a bet and she was willing to share the money if she could spare the information. Selene states that Areum is listening, so she should stop. Rose replied, why, when everyone in Solitaire knows? Rose turns her gaze to Areum to say, you look so naive. Don't tell me you don't know. A confused Areum looks on, while Rose calls her cute, and that she really doesn't know about the decree. Decree? Yes, the decree. Is something we're going to have to talk about next time. We're going to stop here today. Tune in next time to see what the whole decree thing is about. And if you want the next episode, please comment down below. Till next time, like and subscribe.